Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Introducing Planet Basemaps. My name is Tracy Amador, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Planet. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jenna Macuno, who is the Product Marketing Lead for Planet Basemaps. Jenna was responsible for the recent relaunch of Planet Basemaps and will be your guide as we cover the new products and how they are being leveraged today. But before we start, a few housekeeping items. There will be a few live poll questions during the course of the webinar. These polls will appear on the right-hand panel of your GoToWebinar screen, so make sure to look out for that. We encourage you to participate. We want to make sure to gear the content toward the audience and what you all have in terms of input today. Second, there will be a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. We'd like to encourage your questions. If we do run out of time, we'll have an email where you can direct any questions or feedback. Lastly, we'll be recording the webinar and we will post a video in a week or so from today. And we also have a one-pager PDF in that control panel, so feel free to look for it and download it out. With that said, Jenna, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Tracy, for the introduction. My name is Jenna, and as Tracy mentioned, I'm the Product Marketing Lead for Basemaps. So in this webinar, we'll be introducing our newly relaunched Planet Basemaps product line. We'll start by providing some context on business challenges that we've seen across industries. We'll briefly describe traditional imagery mosaic products and how they're evolving with the explosion of satellite imagery available today. From here, we'll introduce the new Planet Basemaps product line. We'll highlight a few flagship use cases in the areas of monitoring and analytics. We'll conclude with a sneak peek at what's coming next, and then conclude with a Q&A. Does that sound good, Tracy?
That sounds great. And before we start, Jenna, I know you wanted to start off with a poll. So we'll do that. I know you wanted to get a sense of how familiar our audience is with imagery mosaics, as well as we call them Planet Basemaps. So let's launch that poll for our audience. So while we give people, let's give people about 30 seconds or so. Jenna, what are you looking to get in terms of results from this poll?
Yeah, so we have lots of people joining from different countries, different industries. I'm really interested in knowing if they use mosaics at all, if this is a new concept for them, or if this is something that they're already using today and are really important to their workflows. So I'd love to just find out from the audience. So let's see, what are people saying?
Okay, so let's give them a couple seconds, close the poll. There you go.
Often, interesting. That's really great. It's good to know that our audience is familiar with mosaic products because we'll be able to introduce them to what Planets is doing in this area. Great. I think now that we can close the poll, we can get back to our regularly scheduled content. Great. So let's dive in. Over the past decade, the incredible pace of technology-driven change has had a profound impact on businesses and governments alike. The rise of cloud computing, mobile revolution, Internet of Things, all of these forces have really accelerated the volume and speed of information exchange. So in this new data-driven era, companies large and small are harnessing technologies, and all of these technologies combined are really driving how industries are rethinking how they collect, analyze, and act on information across their entire value chains. Of course, the rise of big data has created big challenges as well as unforeseen opportunities that our businesses and customers are continuing to grapple with. Because now, more than ever, organizations require not only access to data that can scale, but also tools that make that data actionable, flexible, and even portable so they can make decisions in a timely fashion. Once only the domain of governments and large enterprises, satellite imagery is quickly becoming a key source of big data that is being leveraged by small to medium enterprises across a range of industries. In fact, what we've seen at Planet is that satellite imagery is becoming a critical source of truth for monitoring assets and understanding infrastructure, land use, land cover change at the macroscopic level. And this is enabling a much more expansive and dynamic view of global events. At Planet, we serve over 500 customers in markets including agriculture, government, energy, forestry, beyond. Companies within these industries are really keen to leverage new sources of data like satellite imagery to get a real-time view of their operations as well as those of their competitors. Satellite imagery mosaics, in which lots of satellite images are stitched together into a seamless, regularly gridded composite, they date back to the early days of Earth observation. The fundamental idea behind mosaics is that they eliminate the need for end users to manually select, process, and consolidate a large amount of imagery in order to get a consistent, contiguous, and accurate view of what's going on. Here's an example of a mosaic that our data visualization engineers created for our most recent Planet Explorer conference. This base map covers the entirety of Northern California. You can actually see San Francisco Bay in the bottom left-hand corner and Mono Lake in the upper right. The display itself was around 10 feet tall and 24 feet long. It was truly incredible. Mosaics have been incredibly valuable, but their usefulness to date has been limited by a number of key factors. And all of those factors are largely driven by the tasking approach of imagery acquisition. First, oftentimes traditional mosaics are comprised of imagery that is several years old or even several months old, so they don't accurately reflect what's on the ground. Second, satellite collection capacity constraints have meant that mosaic products typically only are able to cover a certain portion of the globe, like a single country. And oftentimes, that mosaic will have clouds or gaps. Third, mosaics have been traditionally delivered as massive files delivered as FTP or on a hard drive. Lastly, historically, it's been really expensive to purchase mosaics because of high imagery acquisition costs. Because of these limitations, mosaics have largely functioned as snapshots in time for mapping purposes, or as a visual backdrop for layering and other data sources, rather than dynamic sources of geospatial information. Planet operates the largest constellation of imaging satellites that capture every location on Earth's landmass on a near daily basis. This unprecedented capability has unleashed a constant stream of information about the world as it happens. To show this in action, we've collected a month of imagery over Salinas, California. The traditional tasking model will only be able to pass over this location every couple of weeks. And depending on cloud cover, you might miss the opportunity to image. A whole month might go by without any imagery. But with daily PlanetScope imagery, we capture Salinas, California multiple times a week, so you have the most recent imagery. Of course, when you look over the course of the month, that shows a lot of imagery, and it can be a powerful source of truth. But leveraging daily imagery and this fire hose of data can be challenging for our customers. Part of this challenge is why we've built Planet Basemaps. Planet Basemaps are one of the core solutions that transform sort of the big data of Planet's daily imagery and makes that imagery much easier to understand broad-scale change to infrastructure and land cover. Planet Basemaps automate the need for time-intensive manual image processing work, so you can spend less time managing imagery on a daily basis and more time doing what matters, which is analysis. At the highest level, Planet Basemaps are essentially composites of hundreds of scenes, like you see on the left-hand column of this slide. We pick the best scenes and transform them into visually consistent and scientifically accurate mosaics that empower time series analysis and even new applications with machine learning and computer vision. By selecting the best images from frequent imaging intervals, Planet is able to create spatially accurate, high-resolution base maps that minimize the effects of seasonality, cloud, haze, and other image misalignments. Planet's high revisit rate, or frequency, combined with our global coverage, offer some unique advantages for our customers over traditional solutions. So number one, recency. Our unparalleled collection capacity means basemaps are built from the freshest imagery possible. So you are operating with the most recent information available. Comprehensive coverage is next. We offer mosaics that have minimal gaps, clouds, and seam lines or other artifacts in the imagery, even with frequent updates. The ability to do dynamic time series is really important for our customers. We can create base maps over your area on a quarterly, monthly, or weekly basis to empower more historical analysis. And lastly, we want to make sure it's really easy to get these base maps into your workflows. So our base maps can be delivered to you quickly and integrated with web applications and GIS software like ArcGIS Pro. You'll often hear us at Planet use this concept called analysis-ready data, and I want to make sure we are all understanding what that means. So in a nutshell, this concept refers to all the different techniques and approaches that we take to make our satellite imagery prepared for analysis so that you can use it at the time of delivery and in the format you prefer. So with respect to base maps, there are a number of different ways that we achieve analysis-ready data for our base map products. First and foremost, our proprietary best seen on top algorithm produces the highest quality base maps by compositing the best scenes in a given time frame. And our frequent collection capacity means we have a wealth of options to choose from. The high positional accuracy of our base maps make them really easily integrated with other high resolution, high accuracy data sets, or as a foundational layer, so you can use it with other mapping and geospatial information. We do lots of different techniques to do seasonal color correction as well as cloud masking to make our base maps visually stunning and consistent with what's on the ground. And lastly, we use a surface reflectance model for our surface reflectance base maps that really optimize pixel integrity. It makes these base maps really great for quantitative assessment and band maps such as NDVI. We'll talk about this in a later part of this presentation. So what are we doing at Planet that's really fresh and new and novel? Because of traditional approaches and their limitations, mosaics have largely functioned as sort of snapshots in time, like you'll see on the left, where you get one base map that you're used and set up with for the next several years. But what we're trying to do at Planet is really turn base maps into a dynamic source of information that gets updated on a regular basis. You can see change over broad areas. And this is what we're really excited about at Planet. In fact, I wanted to just stop and show our most recent global base map. So this is covering the entire world. All of the imagery that you see collected here is from this past September 2019. This is actual data from our constellations and just shows that we have global scale and are ready to deliver now. Before we get into the new products, though, I really am curious to know how often people in the audience might need a fresh mosaic. So Tracy, I'd love if we could start our next live poll to get a sense of where people are at so far.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to launch the poll for everybody. So you should see that up now. Again, let's give them just a little more time. I think we did want the last one pretty quickly.
Okay.
We'll give them about 30 seconds again, Jenna. So tell us what you are also trying to find out in terms of results for those in the audience that may need a fresh mosaic and the frequency for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this question is interesting because if you think about it, even just several years ago, creating on a base map on a weekly basis wasn't really an option for people. But there are so many different use cases that we've seen at Planet with our customers, whether it's in agriculture or energy or disaster response, or having more frequent updates is really going to help them have that before and after. It'll help them do historical analysis. So I just want to see where people are thinking in terms of what they might need from a frequency perspective.
Yeah, so it looks like a good majority are on monthly.
Monthly, that's interesting. And actually, that's what we're seeing with our customers today, that monthly is really that sweet spot. They might not need an image every day because the things that they're looking at aren't really changing that frequently, but a month is, close to near real time for the change that they're looking at. So that's really great for us.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's actually dive in to the new products. So Planet recently introduced a new offering called Select Basemaps. This new offering brings together all of the elements that make Planet Basemaps useful and really gives you, the customer, the power to select the attributes of the base map that are most valuable for your application or use case. It really is a flexible product, and we're doing for lots of different use cases, and we want to make sure that you have the ultimate choice. So there are four main vectors that we're going to go through in terms of where you can choose and select with these base maps. The first is you get to choose the area. So you get to define if it's going to cover a city, a country, a continent. It can even be your own unique shapefile or GeoJSON. Then you get to select what type of imagery you want to use for the base map. So you can use our PlanetScope medium resolution imagery or our SkySat high resolution imagery instead. Now with PlanetScope, you have the choice between our visual 3-band RGB product, and these are really great for sort of visual backdrops and analysis where you aren't doing anything scientific. We also have our surface reflectance 4-band base map product, which includes the near infrared, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later. You then get to choose how often you want to receive and get a new base map. So we're offering quarterly, monthly, and weekly as standard cadences. So just if you think about that poll, with people being interested in monthly, you can get a base map every month over the course of a year. We want to make it really easy to ingest our base maps no matter where you work. And for some people, that means easy web streaming through our web tile service, which means you can integrate to web applications really quickly or pull it into software that you care about. We also offer a download option for more desktop applications. These is a great option for those doing more scientific analysis, more robust quantitative analysis. So over the next two slides, I just wanted to kind of recap and provide a space for an overview of the select base maps in terms of resolution, whether the delivery format, how spatially accurate it is. This is just to give you a good sense of what we're working with for the visual base maps. And I wanted to double click on the surface reflectance base maps as an option because they're really unique in the industry and something that we haven't seen elsewhere. So basically, surface reflectance base maps leverage image processing techniques on PlanetScope's 4-band surface reflectance assets. And we remove atmospheric effects, we optimize for pixel accuracy, and we really are doing this to empower you to do quantitative analysis. So the base map really provides you with 4 calibrated spectral bands, including the near infrared, and it enables you to do a lot of different applications, including things like NDVI or NDWI. And in fact, at a later part of this year, we're going to have a webinar just to do a deeper dive on this product because they're truly unprecedented in the industry. And we're seeing a lot of traction for surface reflectance base maps in agriculture and forestry, where those indices are really important. For mapping and visualization use cases, we also have rolled out our global base map product, which you saw previously when I showed you the September example. The global base map is really an affordable offering for a one-time snapshot of the entire Earth. It's updated annually. It's really optimized for visualization or as a backdrop to different web applications. We have optimized it as well for web tile services so that you can stream this into your applications. It's really an affordable option and still more recent than certain global base maps that are, 3 to 4 years old. So select base maps are really ideal for monitoring and machine learning analytic use cases where you want to conduct analysis over broad areas on a frequent basis. And I wanted to talk a little bit about different applications that we're seeing for our base maps. So governments are using Planet Basemaps to monitor agriculture productivity and for surveilling different protected areas like national parks. They want to watch for illegal activities, encroachment, and wildfire risks. Timber companies are using base maps to map boundaries of harvested areas for things like inventory analysis and documenting compliance. And what's really cool and interesting to me, because I love animals, is that we've even seen base maps used to understand wildlife habitat for things like, for animals like caribou and orangutans. So really interesting and diverse set of use cases. But I wanted to bring to you 3 examples today just to show some of the range that this product can encompass. So first, let's talk about the energy sector. So at Planet, we have a number of customers in the energy sector that are watching the Permian Basin really closely. They're leveraging Planet Basemaps to get a really recent view over the entire sedimentary basin. And they don't just care about their own operations, which can be very dispersed across this basin, but they're also looking at competitors. The use cases can vary, but broadly speaking, these companies are looking at well development. They want to get an understanding of where their competitors are developing and when and how fast and how quickly they're acquiring land and constructing. They also want to see where new roads are being constructed so they can route their fleets efficiently. And sometimes the roads are not appearing on their mapping devices and programs, so they're using our imagery to route through us. They also want to increase their real estate and land acquisition pipelines. So they're looking across the entire basin to understand where they're going to buy land. And thankfully, there is a new ArcGIS Pro add-in that we announced earlier this year. And so now customers can sort of easily pull in their base maps into the ArcGIS Pro environment and do additional annotation analysis on top. So in this graphic, you'll actually see the right-hand panel where our customers are pulling in the weekly base maps into ArcGIS and are able to just immediately begin their analysis from there. So this is great. I wanted to make sure to plug the ArcGIS Pro add-in because you can download it today, and we'll have links at the end of this presentation. So similar to the energy use case, but adjacent, base maps are really great for monitoring large-scale infrastructure projects. So we wanted to show the Anadarko gas liquefaction plant in Mozambique as a really good example. We have customers, particularly governments and private companies, that wanted to know what the status of this construction project month over month. They were very keen to understand if it was on track, when it would come online, what the status and how the operations were proceeding. So if you look on the left, August 2018 was when construction sort of started in earnest. And then over the course of the year, you can see that progressing. And as we got closer to the summer of this year, in July, there was enough progress made that our customer actually wanted to use, they saw enough of a signal in the base map to tip a high resolution SkySat to get a closer view. So Planet Basemaps are a really good foundational layer to help customers prioritize when and where they want to task a high resolution asset, whether it's SkySat, whether it's drone or aerial. It really gives them that good sense of change and allows them to efficiently use their high resolution assets so they're not constantly queuing them up when nothing has changed significantly. So with a month-over-month view of an area, you can kind of more strategically use your resources. And lastly, I wanted to bring up a customer example. So we work very closely with Global Forest Watch. Global Forest Watch pulls Planet Basemaps over Brazil and the rest of Latin America because they want to understand where land cover change is happening. So if you look in their platform, the pink represents an outside data source. It's the GLAD deforestation alerts. And imagine, if you will, just having those pink alerts over a map. They would be helpful to show kind of where things are happening in aggregate, but they wouldn't have that context and nuance that you really need. So what Global Forest Watch does is they use the base map to not only validate those alerts that they get from a database, but they're also able to kind of assess what are the drivers of that deforestation or land cover change. Is it a wildfire? Is it agricultural activity? Is it illegal logging? So on a month-to-month basis, they're pulling in these alerts, pulling in Planet Basemaps to their web application, and really getting that kind of combined sense of what's going on in Brazil and across Latin America. So before we close, I wanted to give you a sneak peek of what's coming next for Basemaps. This was something that wasn't originally on the agenda, but we have some late-breaking updates and wanted to make sure that everyone here is getting the latest and greatest. So here we are. This is brand new. We recently rolled out a number of changes that enable you to view any select base map in Planet Explorer. If you're a customer or previously worked with Planet, you knew that we had this UI called the Planet Basemaps Viewer. We're going to continue to support that platform, but we're also making moves to pull base maps into Explorer, which is really great. So what you're seeing here is an example of our new weekly cadence. So in this case, we're viewing week-over-week base maps in Florida in an agricultural region. We found that customers really love being able to go from a large overview of an area down to the same resolution as our scenes without having to do additional searching and filtering on top. So in this energy example, if we go back to the one we discussed earlier, they want to be able to gain insights on new well pads and construction on a weekly basis, but they also want to leverage scenes very quickly to kind of toggle between. So once you're in Explorer, you can then make use of additional tools like the Compare tool to swipe and fade and really hone in on what's changed. The other big result of all of our recent work is that we want to make using our surface reflectance base maps more accessible in Planet Explorer. And we also want to help do visualization of those different indices that we talked about. So starting today and as we roll this out, we're going to enable NDVI and false color by default. So you can go from large overviews to high zoom levels of these different indices and see these indexes on the fly. So you can see it over the entire state, color infrared, and then you can also drill down. Plus, if you're interested in other indices, we're going to enable a lab where there'll be another handful or so like NDWI. We're also looking to eventually add arbitrary bandmass, but for now, if there's a particular index that you would like to us to support, please reach out. We'll have a contact form at the end of the webinar so you can get in touch with your feedback. But like I said, this is really exciting work. This is coming soon, and we're really excited about what's next. And with that, I wanted to make sure we had a good chunk of time for questions. So I'd like to open up the floor to our live audience. Tracy, I would love your support in helping collect and bring those questions so that we can get those addressed.
Yeah, sure. So, this was great, Jenna. Thank you so much for all this info. I know it's really helpful to the audience we have attending today. You mentioned customers want to see how much they can see. So what's the spatial resolution of Planet Basemaps?
So yeah, if we go back to an earlier slide, we can see that Planet Basemaps come in either medium resolution or high resolution. And at Planet medium resolution is our PlanetScope constellation, and the base maps will be 4.7 meters per pixel. Just for reference, that's sort of a really, medium resolution is really good for understanding vegetation, large infrastructure. You won't really be able to see really fine details like the outlines of buildings in high definition or like roads and cars. And so that's where you'd probably, if you need that, then you would go to our SkySat base maps, which are high resolution. They're 0.59 meter per pixel. And it really does kind of depend on the use case. So the use case dictates what spatial resolution is needed. Some customers need frequency, not high resolution.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the use case, based on what you describe, actually dictates what spatial resolution customers or even our prospects will need.
Right.
Great.
And in certain cases, resolution isn't as important than frequency.
Right. Okay, great. And you know what? Now that you talk about frequency, I do see a question coming from the audience. Do we offer at Planet frequencies outside of quarterly, monthly, and weekly?
Right. So our frequencies, the quarterly, monthly, and weekly cadences are kind of the standard options for select base maps. But we realize that customers may need different things. So we do customize as needed. Sometimes there are different use cases where biweekly is needed or every 2 months. Those are outside the standard options, but we can work with customers because we have that capability. And I think we see that sometimes with like agricultural use cases. For example, they need higher frequency than even weekly, or they need 14-day. So it really just depends. We can customize, but the quarterly, monthly, and weekly are really the sweet spot for most people, and so that's why they're standard.
Gotcha. And so we have another question that came in regarding somebody wants to know why they would use Planet Basemaps instead of Planet Monitoring, where they would get daily imagery.
Yeah, actually, if we go back to the agricultural use case that I just talked about, there are certain customers in ag and in forestry, even in energy, we're really having, they're looking at really broad areas, really diverse geographies, or broad farmland, or large tracts of forest and timber across big areas. And so they don't really want to do that work of stitching daily scenes together. So latency for them, where they get it every day, is not as needed as just making a really clean, consistent mosaic across a broad area. And so they'd rather have Planet do that hard kind of manual image processing work that we do up front, so they don't have to. Daily scenes are really great and a sweet spot for customers that need kind of that daily image. They need to see it every day. But base maps are really great for like broad area monitoring, where the things that customers are looking at aren't changing on a daily basis. They might be changing on a weekly or a monthly basis. And one other thing there is that base maps can be used really easily in web applications. So they can, customers can easily pull it into their platforms, and they can sort of activate and act on that information quickly. And it can be a little bit more challenging with daily scenes to kind of manage that volume in a web application setting.
Gotcha. So you do mention scenes. Let's kind of revisit that, if you could. You mentioned ag and in agriculture and daily images. We know in agriculture they do use monitoring specifically in that vertical market. So let's talk through that just one more time. Do we provide a way to know which scenes were used to create base maps? That's a question coming from the audience specifically to what you kind of touched upon.
Yeah, okay. So we get this question quite a bit. Once you have a base map and it's mosaicked, I want to understand as a customer which scenes were used to make that base map. It makes total sense, and ag, it is ag or in forestry, it's relevant because typically those customers are doing things like NDVI. And so when they look at the base map, they want to know within that base map, where is the scene that is used to get that value. So at Planet, we do provide a really easy way to kind of fix, we call it pixel traceability or scene traceability, where you can associate a particular scene within that base map and then figure out where it was used, when it was captured, and then it helps, with NDVI or NDWI to know from that base map which scene was used to get that value. So yes, short answer, yes.
Okay, great. And I know we have a lot of time, but I do want to ask. There was a question around if people could use Planet Basemaps directly in their web applications. So I know you did touch upon web applications. Could we kind of revisit that as well? I see a couple of questions coming in regarding that specifically.
Yeah, and I think it's actually one of the great things about our Basemap product is that they are built, if you are working in web applications or even just web environments, Basemaps can be kind of instantly streamed or just pulled in. But not only that, we're doing a lot of work on the integration side to make it easier to pull in our Basemaps directly into platforms that, geospatial platforms that our customers commonly use. So that's why I mentioned earlier we have this new ArcGIS add-in, which really allows you to kind of quickly pull in the base maps that you've purchased into that environment. We also are doing work with QGIS and Google Earth Engine in the future, so that's coming on down on the roadmap. But all in all, the Planet Basemaps are really built for streaming as a delivery mechanism because we realize that's where a lot of our customers are working, and we want to enable that world. And so we have, great tile services for direct streaming. We also are building out those integrations to make that process easier. And of course, if you don't want to do anything on streaming and you want to download, we support that too.
Yes. And this was great. I really appreciate going through this. I know the audience and the audience members do as well. You touched upon a good amount of the challenges, the frequency, also going over products. So it's just a great overarching presentation today. Is there anything else you would like to cover before we actually close?
Yeah, actually, I do have a final slide to just make sure that you aren't left not knowing what to do next. I want to make sure that you guys on the line can definitely learn more about Planet Basemaps. So definitely check out our website where you can learn more. There you'll find a sign-up sheet, but also you can use this link to trial our Basemaps. It's a free, kind of risk-free 14-day trial where you can get a kind of a sense of what they look like on the web. As Tracy mentioned on the top, we have the Basemaps info sheet in the right-hand control panel. And of course, we'd love for you to reach out to our team. Of course, if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm open to your feedback and questions. It's just jenna@planet.com. We want to make sure that once you've learned and been introduced, that you know where to go next. And as I said earlier, we're planning to do more webinars on Basemaps. We think that this is a really valuable product that people are needing to know about, and we haven't done as much focus on it, but we're really ramping up our webinar content series around it. So we're going to have our next one later this year on surface reflectance Basemaps, because this is sort of a more scientific, robust product that we think the industry is really going to get excited about.
Yes, this is great.
Yeah.
So we will give everybody back. It looks like, we're pretty much at time. We can give back people time, which nobody will complain about. But I do want to say thank you, Jenna, to you, to the Planet team. And, going through a lot of this is good information. And as you mentioned, for everyone on the line, we have a bunch of resources that you can get access to. Look for this webinar also on demand. And we thank you for today, Jenna. This is great.
Thanks so much, Tracy, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.